My name is Taylor Speegle. I'm managing partner at Wondour.
My name is Dylan Stroud, and I'm also a managing partner at Wondour.
And Wondour was the technology team behind VRLU.
Today we're going to be talking about VRLU, which is a multi-platform technology service. It's a video streaming service that utilizes 3D, 360 technology on mobile apps, virtual reality, and another set of HMD devices, head-mounted displays.
We got synced up with VRLU through our mutual friend James Hsu, who is co-founder and CEO of VRLU. And he and his team, as they were developing, had the vision in mind to create a personal development program in virtual reality and needed a technology team to help them see that through. And that's where really Wondour and Dylan and myself came into play to really help share in that dream and help co-found and lead that process together.
I was really excited when that first meeting happened, just because we have a lot of interest in the space of education in the digital space, as well as bringing that forward into virtual reality. We've done a lot of research. We were really excited about the prospect of that. Just the sheer improvements that you can have to retention, attention with people, and we've seen a lot of data that was suggesting that people will in fact learn better in these sort of environments because you have undivided attention, you have this sense of presence, you have a lack of distractions coming around with sounds, spaces, and other social cues that cause problems. And you can really introduce a variety of technologies to sort of optimize the learning process to how fast you receive information, and there was a lot of IP towards generating that to make sure people could learn really quickly and efficiently, which was really, really exciting.
And I think to piggyback off of that, the simplicity of it, so Masterclass around that time was really gaining a lot of traction in the marketplace, right? And people were creating their own Masterclass as the brand itself. And so to think about that, our minds were living in the world of virtual reality and how that might shape the future. And so that transition between taking Masterclass on the two-dimensional plane in their standard video format and bringing that into the more immersive virtual reality environment with all the benefits that Dylan just outlined just made tremendous sense. So that in itself from day one got me personally quite excited about what VRLU could become.
So when we first heard about the concept, it was definitely exciting, but there's always this, at the beginning stages of a concept, there's many unknowns, right? And we tend to call them unknown unknowns. These are areas of the project that you don't necessarily know you don't know, which represent potentially critical risks to the success of the project. And so at the beginning it was exciting, and that's really when you sort of buckle down and you have to work with the team to understand what is that initial concept, which the first pass at that was definitely, okay, we want to do education in virtual reality. And we want to be able to bring those sort of experiences to multiple types of platforms, whether that be mobile apps, websites, or other types of HMD devices, head-mounted displays. And so that was a really good, served as our compass. But moving forward into the next stage, which is, okay, but what do you build? What are those feature sets? What do you need? What is necessary? Which aspects are critical risks to the project, and which ones are sort of separating the wheat from the chaff? What are the issues? What are the things that you don't need? And what are those necessities? Once we really started to refine the concept, we worked with their team for quite a while, going through different iterations with the VRLU team, and finally started arriving at what we call that golden path, that critical path, which was, what is that core loop? What are the most essential things that are absolutely necessary? And what are what's the forward vision that we can sort of add on to that to broaden the scope of the general project? Once we had that critical path refined, it was actually, I would say for me, it was a big relief. Whenever you have a project like this and there's so many moving pieces, so much is on the line, and so many team members are wanting to make sure that this can be successful, you definitely want to pour your heart and soul into it as a team. And I think we landed on something that was really special. And really the rest of the intellectual property in terms of feature sets and what the types of content we should be producing and the admin controls to make sure that this whole thing can operate at scale was much easier to produce, right? It almost, in a sense, wrote itself and created itself once we had that core fundamentals in place.
And I would say playing off that slightly, just going back to the core of it, is everything, especially 2+ years ago, everything in virtual reality was new, right? Our approach to how things should be done in virtual reality, it's all a new frontier, much more so than I would say it is today, but it's still in its early stages. And so, 2 years ago, as you look at that, any project was unique in its own right? We couldn't necessarily look to a rock solid source and say, yes, that is how it's done. Let's try to replicate that. And that's still very much the case today, but even 2 years ago, I would say that was much more of it. And with that in mind, I think that's always the exciting part in this field, and which is why we work so much in virtual reality today, is because we get to shape the vision of what will be used by not only hundreds and thousands of people and millions of people, but other developers like ourselves and designers like ourselves in the future of how they approach applications like this.
Yeah, creating those standards is a blast. It's one of the best parts of what we do, I'd say.
Yeah. So with VRLU, the work started basically upon the teams meeting together, right? So shortly thereafter, it seemed like James and Danny and the rest of the team, they knew what they wanted to accomplish. They were assembling a great management team, a video production team around them, and so they were ready to go. And so from that point on, it really became step one in a lot of our processes is understanding the team, right? Who's around us? Where does our skill set fall? Where are strengths and weaknesses? Where can we add as Wondour? Where can we integrate into the team and provide the most value? Obviously, the concept of building the application. But the way we work is we become integrated into whatever team we work on, right? So this is VRLU's project, and we as Wondour coming in became an extension of VRLU effectively. And so their ideas, our ideas are all shared, developing the intellectual property together. That is a collective process, and figuring out team dynamics, who's going to work on the team, who on Wondour's side would fit best with the personalities and the dynamics of the rest of VRLU. Those types of pieces, really the human element of that, are really important and where those skill sets fall. And then taking to the next level from there, it's looking at the marketplace, right? Okay, so we all agree in the early stages, this is a good idea, right? It kind of passes our initial checks. Now let's confirm on our side, okay, is there room in the market, right? Are there competitors already in place? And then who's doing it the best, right? And what lessons can we take that have already been learned so we don't have to reinvent the wheel? So as we begin those early stages of the process, it's really making sure our teams can mesh, making sure there's room in the market so that once we start designing, once we start developing, and once we start videography, with the rest of the VRLU team, that we know that the foundation is solid. We know that we've asked the right number of people to understand, okay, there is an appetite for this so that this can be commercialized, people want this, and that this is really well suited for the technology at hand, which is virtual reality, and has the ability to expand into the future, right? So this isn't something that works now but will be outdated. It's how do we know that this is going to work across mediums, across devices? And I think those foundations, right? Because when you get into the weeds of any project, you want to make sure that you're built on a really solid foundation. And so that's once we get started on any project, it's really building that foundation so that we can move forward as fastly as possible and iterate as fastly as we can.
Yeah, that's definitely a step that many companies miss, which is just to make sure that people actually want the product and to do the proper research ahead of time. You can build the most perfect piece of technology, and if nobody wants it, it's really a hard thing for everybody to be a part of. So it was really important that we get our gut checks, make sure this is something that should exist, and take those lessons forward and build that cohesive team where we knew who's communicating with who, which channels are we using to do the project management, and what are the decision-making hierarchies that we need, and basically who are our customers, and refining our understanding of who that is, so that once we actually start putting pen to paper, everything runs really smoothly through the good times and also the more challenging aspects, which comes with every new project that has some sort of innovation in it.
So in the beginning of VRLU, a lot of my time was spent on project management, as well as focusing on the overall strategy of the project. And so that involved how the Wondour team and VRLU team, how they are growing together and integrating. So making sure that everybody on VRLU's side understood who in Wondour is involved, what is their role and responsibility, and vice versa, so that team can expand and grow together. So that's a really important aspect as well. Another nuance to VRLU is its international nature. In the case of VRLU, it was spanning 3 international markets, right? So we were launching initially in Korea, followed by the United States and Japan. And so as those teams were being built out, you had an international facet to it as well, right? So not only simply time zones, but it's understanding the workflow, the dynamics of each team in each market, as well as even on the hardware manufacturing side. So our initial partner was Pico for the virtual reality headset. And similar to the United States, where Oculus reigns supreme, Pico is a major player in Asian markets. And so in working with them, we had to work with their development team. And they're over in China. And so we had to make sure that we understood that dynamic and how that's going to tie back to Korea, Japan, the United States, and our development flow. And so working through all of those pieces in the beginning are especially important, and that's where I spend a lot of my time making sure all of those pieces can fit well together.
At the early stages of VRLU, I spoke with the executive team quite often to really try to hone in on what are the challenges and what are the actual objects that they're trying to create. What is the goal, what is the mission, so that we can sort of hone in on those business goals and sort of try to interpret that in the space of what technology and what the future should be. So I was very heavily involved in the early stages of helping refine that concept to a point that could be actually put to pen and paper. And then from there on out, I was overseeing and helping work with the project managers for the design team and the engineering team. Definitely the first step was creating sort of an interdisciplinary team where our designers can work and then get feedback from the engineering to understand, where are the where are problems, what are the costs associated with it, where are areas that we can innovate and where are some areas that we should stay, pretty by the book. And so I worked with the design team as sort of like as head of product in this case, where we tried to sort of refine those concepts, iterate and prototype on what those features might look like and get a sense of what the space of virtual reality and making sure that this type of experience can work multi-platform. Again, understanding how will this experience be on a mobile phone versus in virtual reality. So worked a lot in that space to iterate, prototype, get feedback, and then actually work with the engineers to process whether or not these things are worth investing in and get that feedback loop going with real-world potential users as well as the executive team to make sure we work on the right things. With any project as ambitious as VRLU, one of the fundamental challenges is just understanding the nature of how fast the industry is moving and making sure that we can appropriately move at a pace that is within budget and time constraints while innovating and sort of setting yourself apart from other devices and experiences that are out there that might have similar benefits and value proposition. So that was really challenging to sort of lay the groundwork and the fundamentals of, again, separating that wheat from the chaff, where we understand how do we innovate, how do we build practically so that we can innovate into the future without actually sort of falling off of the rails and also keeping up with the rate of innovation that's happening in the industry.
And I'd say some other challenges that we faced is the nature of VRLU and coming in as a fresh team, coming into the world of VR. And much of the team was not living in the world of virtual reality. And so being able to educate the executive team, the leadership, the ownership, the boots on the ground, right? And even the masters, as they came on, making sure that a sense of brand, a sense of continuity, a sense of understanding why virtual reality had all of this promise together, make sure the team all entirely shared that vision. Because especially 2 years ago, it's a brand new world, right? That new world is shaping rapidly every single day. And so as the team grows and the more people become involved and they're purchasing, the more customers are purchasing the application, we have more masters expanding into the field. The teams expand in 3 different international markets, all evolving on a technological basis at a different pace. So trying to keep all of that together and making sure we have a handle on what's going on in those scenarios was really important. And that extended to, on the international front, that extended also to even hardware manufacturers. So going into the world of Pico, right, what Pico's product offered and how they manage their development process and development teams and development resources differs from what we typically would experience on something like Android or iOS or even Oculus, those headsets. So even on the hardware basis, it's understanding, again, where is the pace of technological change in that market with that manufacturer, and then how do we adapt to that to get the best performance out of those scenarios of the product. So everything, so much about the VRLU product in each piece that we touched was new and it was rapidly changing and evolving. And so staying on top of that and reacting to that as fast as possible was an incredibly important challenge to be able to keep up with.
And on the design side, there was definitely a fair number of challenges understanding that most of the people that would potentially be the ideal customer for this product have not experienced virtual reality before. And it'd be necessary for them to be able to navigate through menus using a new input method, which in this case was a 3 degree of freedom controller, to be able to navigate through videos, navigate through content, and doing so in a way that wasn't confusing and felt intuitive, where there aren't a ton of standards that are being done yet. And so that was both challenging and one of the most fun aspects to work on, is to figure out how to get this to where we can put this on my grandfather or your grandparents and they understand intuitively how to do this. And that is one of the beautiful things about virtual reality, when you actually have the inputs being your hands, your head, is we sort of have the 3 dimensions of space around you all the way down to the ground below you and above you, which creates an environment where we can really think about 3D space and user interfaces where you're not limited by the bounds of the size of the screen, but there are still physical limits in terms of you don't want the UI to move below the floor, for example, or so far away that you can't read it or see the content. And so that was definitely one of the challenges, is just making sure this was really easy to use for the market's older demographics, early young demographics, and then understanding the changes that happen from market to market, that being US, Korea, Japan. There's small tweaks in making sure that fundamental structure is in place for the user interface and user experience, and making sure that it's fluid and flexible enough that as we add new experiences, we can actually support those, that maybe not be the exact specific type of content we were doing before, but the whole product can actually flow really nicely into new types of content as well. So that was definitely a challenge to get that right at first, and I was really excited when we actually started to figure out what was working.
And then playing off of Dylan's point is the different types of content is we saw that come to light. It's not just something we planned for, but it actually happened several times over. So initially it was personal development content. This was video content that we were producing, right? That VRLU was producing, that was scripting. So there's a very clear understanding of what that medium and what that type would be. And then there were strategic partnerships that came about that the VRLU team found, and it made a lot of sense in some international markets to partner with other content creators. And in that, we had to adapt. And one example of that is we actually integrated kids content, and actually two-dimensional, 2D traditional video kids content, and as a module within the VRLU larger experience. And so we had to adapt and make sure that there was this design continuity and experience continuity. Okay, well, we were planning on 3D 360-degree video, which is what everyone had been experiencing. How do we still create the same VRLU experience, but expand that to kids content in a different video format? And I'm happy to say that in that process, right? So, Dylan and the design team did a great job of creating that continuity and creating that consistency. And instead, when you went into that type of experience, instead of looking around and look up and down and had that one-to-one kind of ratio that is what we a lot of times envision as VR, you went in and it's almost like your giant movie screen, right? And so kids could go in and still have a sense of a playful environment. That could look around, and then they could play, select the video still in a three-dimensional essence. And then when the video played, it was as though they're watching a large-scale movie in 3D within the VRLU world. And that was just one great example of a challenge that came upon us that we had already kind of planned out, and we saw executed very, very well.
Yeah, for that there was definitely, it was necessary to have a continuity of your physical presence in VR, where instead of being surrounded by a 360 video, you're still in a 360 space, but we can float that screen out in front of you and make it whatever size we want it to be. So that awareness of that, figuring that out, was definitely an aha moment, which was really nice and flowed very nicely. I'd also add that we noticed pretty quickly that because we had multiple production teams, those working on content specific for Korea, for Japan, for the United States, it was really important that we created a sort of a fundamental place where everybody can have the same process, organize the project management of making sure that they had a way to upload these videos and control those videos. And so we worked really hard to make sure that there was an admin panel that was sort of easy to use, so that as fast as they can produce content and get content online, they can also offer that and show that to their user base without having to rely on any engineers to go in and do anything, any magic. So that was a really important part of this, to work on it at the scale and the pace that they were producing content. And I was really proud of the team to see how much content they were able to generate in such a fast time. And I think a lot of that came down to just making sure that the tools were easy for upload.
And the tool set, so we built an admin panel. So obviously there's the front-facing user experience and that the customer sees, but it's just as important to understand and plan for and build out tool sets that allow the production team and the rest of the VRLU team to be able to manage content at scale, right? From 10 videos to start, eventually thousands of individual episodes and segments. And then there's also the multilingual functionality as well with subtitles. And so we built out a custom admin platform for VRLU that could be logged in from anywhere in the world, where you could upload content, change and dynamically change what the text is, the translation of that text, and add as many languages as needed in order to translate it to our customer bases around the world. And so that was a major piece of the puzzle that often most people, if you download the VRLU app, wouldn't necessarily see. but is essential to be able to move at scale across multiple markets, across hundreds and hundreds and thousands of episodes.
It's been really exciting to see the transformation of the entire VRLU team since the inception of the original idea. Just watching the team grow across the United States, Japan, and Korea has been really, really exciting. Meeting all the different people, different walks of life, and then building this shared vision together, which definitely had that feeling of bigger than any one person, has been really, really fun. And it's also been fun to see the sheer volume of content and technology that we've built together as a team. So I think we're now at over 1,500 different pieces of content, which is really exciting. And in such a short time, I was very impressed with the production teams for creating that much content in such a short amount of time, and making sure that it was also interesting to watch, fun to watch, and educational and also entertaining. Also was really excited to see James Hsu, CEO of VRLU, during this time frame was recognized as 40 under 40. So that's always really exciting to work with founders and see them get recognized for the hard work and the risk that they take in trying these sort of ventures. And we're just really thankful to have them share their dream with us and to be a part of that and to help make it a reality. So it's always more fun once you actually have that foundation in place as well. The difference between the initial idea, where it's really exciting to be sort of conceptualizing these things, and having an actual real tangible product that you can play with, you can touch, you can show others, and you can watch the many people that are loving it, and it is a very rewarding experience. So that's also been really fun to share in sort of the success of the project together.
And I think one of the most exciting things that you can hope for in a project has happened with VRLU, where you are trying to help create a segment utilizing cutting-edge technology and making bets on where the industry is going to go, and hoping, to the best of your knowledge, that the industry does in fact go that way. And so from the first conversation we had, the world's view of what virtual reality is and how virtual reality can be deployed in education and the value of that, right? Scientific research has been helping to support that, as well as there's never been more headsets in more homes ever in history. And so seeing that the timing of that has played out and the future has played out, I would honestly say at a faster pace than maybe what I would have expected, is incredibly fantastic to see, especially with VRLU and looking to VRLU's future and the type of technology that we built and the type of content we've created. It's really positioned, it's perfectly positioned now for the future as a market leader that has already helped to define what the industry is going to be and the direction that it's going to go.
It's also just really fun to have those projects and products out there, seeing real people interacting with the apps, the mobile apps, the virtual reality app, and also the experience that we have with a headset HMD. And so just getting that feedback has been really exciting, and that's sort of a new paradigm shift where we're able to have the product out there, get the feedback, and just see the smiling faces. That's definitely a good reward and cherry on top, and sparks up a lot of ideas in the team to just continue innovating. A lot of new energy comes in from that.
Yeah, I'd say where we are today is also a great spot to be, because it's not a product that you built and it serves its purpose and now there's an end to it. It's now more than ever, you can see even more branches of what the product could be and where it could go and the innovations you could make. And so the size of the product we see expanding and shifting along with the environment tremendously. And so that's another great position to be at, is we're not exhaustive. All of our ideas are not exhausted, right? They're growing more and more every single day. Feedback from users, the experiences, feedback from masters, where we could take video production, new headsets and new hardware coming out that allow us to deploy our content, our library that is amongst the largest in the world of its kind, being able to deploy those on new mediums all over the world. It's now more exciting than ever of what VRLU could become.
Yeah, it definitely feels like we've barely scratched the surface at this point. And there's a lot of energy in the team, a lot of innovations that we think are going to really change the way people view education, period, in the digital space, and especially by really taking advantage of virtual reality in whole new ways. So very excited to sort of come out with those new feature sets.
VRLU is a great example of almost like a perfect project for Wondour. It's a team that has an incredible amount of expertise internally in and of themselves. They are bold and willing to embark on a new journey, being technology-centric, and are open to learning down that path. They are open for us, Wondour joining their team, right? We're not kind of an external contractor. They want us as part of their team. They're integrating us as part of their team, and we can share ideas freely and generate those ideas in an incredibly fun, interesting way that can impact millions of users. I think that in and of itself is why VRLU has been such a rewarding project for us, and really symbolizes why we do what we do, and helping to create, really the future of tomorrow. A huge thank you to the VRLU team. It has been a pleasure working with everyone involved, and we're excited to continue to partner with them for the future ahead of us. And if you want to learn more about what we do with VRLU, or get our perspective about your company and your business, and learn more about the world that we live in, we will be hosting our first ever Wondour workshop at Whitney Library right here in Las Vegas. If you're interested in going, text workshop to 702-602-8802, and that's on July 16th. We are always excited to meet founders or existing companies just like VRLU and their amazing management team and executive team. And so, in that scenario, we are happy, more than happy, to share our thoughts about how your project could take shape and where we see its future going. If you do want to reach out, Wondour.com is really the place to start. You can see some of our work and just reach out directly on us on there, or find me on LinkedIn or any of our socials.